Welcome. This week we're going to talk about the new forms CAR has just put out. Those 4 forms we have for the coronavirus have all been changed. Let's take a look at the first one, CVA. I think the best way of doing this is looking at a typical transaction. So you have a family, they need to sell their home, they put it up for sale, buyers come in, made an offer, they accepted it, everything's going fine. When do you use the CVA form? Well, you don't. You don't need to use it. Everything's going fine, you don't need to use it. Only time you use it is if the coronavirus is going to be interfering with your transaction for some reason. So we'll take the same case, and this time though, the sellers are going to be delayed at the very end. They can't close escrow because they can't get a notary. Notaries are all tied up. It's going to take them an extra week or so to get one. Now you can use the CVA form because this has interfered with their closing the transaction. So in this case, you're going to use the CVA. You're going to go down to section number 4B, which says to extend the time of the escrow. So you're going to extend the escrow a couple of weeks so you can make sure you get the seller to sign this off, okay? When you do that, you're going to use the NUCC, the Notice of Unforeseen Circumstances because of the coronavirus issues. And using that, that explains why this is a coronavirus issue. So the NUCC form explains why it's interfering. In this case, you would say it's interfering because of the problems we're having with getting a notary. Okay, next scenario would be a buyer. We have a buyer that has a termite issue. They want to make sure they get a termite report, and they can't get one yet. So what do they want to do? They want to extend the escrow and their contingencies until they can do that. In this case, you're going to use the CVA form again, go down to section 4, and you're going to mark section for A and B. So A is going to extend the contingencies, period, for inspections, and B is going to extend the close of escrow to make sure you have time after the contingencies are looked at. So you check both those boxes. And then you use the NCC to explain why you need to delay. And that would be, of course, because you can't get somebody out to do the termite inspection till the stay-at-home order changes. Next one is scenario 4. In this case, the buyer sends in to the seller the CVA. On it, they have checked the B box that they want the escrow continued. And in the NUCC, they have, in that one, they have checked that they can't get the loan closed yet. I know they've waived contingencies, they had the loan approved, but because of issues coming up, the loan's being extended and they have to wait a couple of weeks before it will finally be funded. Well, what do you do? As a seller's agent, what do you tell your seller? What advice do you give them? Number 1, look at this, you say, you know, it's reasonable, you've gone all this way, everything's been done, you want to close this, you know, let's give them the time and go ahead with this. However, if you look at box section 4B, you're going to see that in that one, and I'm going to show it to you now. In this CVA form, down in section 4B, you mark that extension. You say 15 days more you're going to put down there. But down here it says, buyer's deposit shall be returned to buyer minus fees and costs incurred to buyer. Okay, so the issue here is now you're advising your seller, and the buyer's waived all contingencies. So right now, if this buyer does not close escrow, the seller has a right to get liquidated damages or go get damages for not closing the escrow. This appears to say they're going to waive that right. And even if they don't close now, the buyer gets the money back. So you may want to check with the seller and say, well, wait a minute, there's a little box here you can check. In this one, it says, buyer's deposit shall be released to seller if otherwise allowed in the agreement. So you have a choice here. So what's this seller to do? Well, they want to be nice. It's an issue here, the virus. They don't want to unduly burden the buyer. If in case they can't get the loan, they can't afford the house, they don't want to unburden. And they can say, no, let's go ahead. I'll give the money back. That's great. Good for them. On the other hand, what if your seller is also in escrow and they need this house to close, get the money to buy the house they want to have? And if they can't do that, they're going to lose their deposit in that transaction. In that case, the seller may not want to lose their chance to get the buyer's deposit here. The buyer can't close. Even if it isn't that drastic, perhaps the family just at selling needs the funds. And the house has been off the market now for a couple of months, and they've had to pay the principal and interest and the taxes and the insurance, and they don't want to lose that money they've had to pay out. Therefore, they need the buyer's deposit if the buyer doesn't close now. In that case, you want to make sure that this box is checked if the sellers want it. So what is your duty here? Your duty is to explain what this is and then let the seller decide what they want to do. After all, it's their decision, not yours. Yours is to advise them what's the best way to go. Now, on the other side of this, you have a buyer. If the buyer gets us back now and that box is checked, what do you tell the buyer? Well, the buyer has to be informed also that, in fact, in this case, if this box is checked and they don't close escrow, the loan doesn't come through, they're going to lose their deposit. Now, if they don't sign this and don't have that box checked, there might be a right that they could keep that deposit. Maybe they can argue that, in fact, the virus was some kind of a problem that they couldn't overcome and therefore they shouldn't have to lose their deposit. At least they may have an argument. But they shouldn't just accept it automatically that they're going to give up their money unless they understand and they feel pretty sure they're going to close that escrow. So on both sides of this, you must inform your clients and let them make the decision so they can make it with knowledge of what they're doing. I've heard that some realtors are showing properties that are occupied. Now in Monterey County and Santa Cruz County, that's not allowed. It is against the order that's been put out. And some agents are saying, well, I get a $1,000 fine or so, but I'm making a lot of money on this transaction, this closing, so it's worth it to me. I'll pay the fine. You should recognize that's not the only liability you would have, just a fine. In fact, if somebody goes to that house and does contact the virus and gets sick or perhaps even dies, there's obviously going to be a lawsuit. And a good personal injury insurance is going to make sure you're included in that lawsuit. And the problem here is that you have violated the law to do this. Therefore, you can be contributing, you'll be a contributing cause to this person getting hurt or dying. The real problem here also is that, in fact, you could be held liable and not have any insurance. Your E&O coverage will not cover illegal acts. They probably will not even let you get defense costs to cover your defense for an illegal act. All this money you have to come out of your own pocket to defend yourself, and then if there is a judgment against you, you have to pay it out of your own money, no E&O coverage or insurance coverage for you. Therefore, it's very careful. You should be very careful about before you do this and follow the rules. But the best thing you can do is to try and make sure you work with the other realtors in your area and contact your health officer to get them to change those rules to recognize that a realtor is an essential service to people that need help, people who may need to sell their house, need to move, and that even if it's occupied, they need to do that now, and therefore you can follow the state guidelines, making it safe to enter those houses with your clients to show the houses and to be able to close the escrows. Thank you for this week. I'm Michael Shaw with Berkshire Hathaway Home Services, Real-Time Realty. Nice to talk to you.